In 1972, health professionals were not telling their patients to strength train. And they certainly weren't telling teenagers to lift weights. Now this is why my father, who's a physical therapist, he was not excited with the idea that his 4 boys were obsessed with lifting weights in the 70s. There's nothing else we wanted to do than lift weights and get big and strong and muscular. Now, if you fast forward to 2019, health professionals are saying to adults, you should be strength training if you want to live a healthy, disease-free, vital life forever. And so we're going to talk about that this morning. We're going to talk about how do you make your life better by living what we describe as the strength training lifestyle. So on your outline there, let's just defer to that for a moment. We're going to touch on why is it that muscle matters? I mean, this is a new concept. We always thought it was about cardiovascular well-being, and it still is about cardiovascular well-being, but why do your muscles matter when it comes to living well for a very, very long time? Then I'm going to touch on the 1% rule. In less than 1% of your week, we can literally protect your health for years to come. And then, why is strength training a forever behavior? It seems like in our culture, people get this mindset that there's an appropriate time to stop taking care of myself. Not true. This is a forever behavior. We'll look at just a little bit of the science on why it is a forever behavior. It's something you should do for the rest of your life if you're committed to living a healthy, vibrant life. So let's start with muscle matters. I'm a dietitian by training, even though we have a personal training business where we focus on strength training. So as you guys know, we've had dietary guidelines since the 1980s. We've been told by the government, these are the things we should be eating if we want to be healthy, but we never had exercise guidelines. It wasn't until 10 years ago that the Department of Health and Human Services issued the first ever physical activity guidelines for Americans. Now these were basically a call to action because they said all adults should strength train on a weekly basis. And this was a mind numbing experience because nobody has been told this before. My father, who's now 83, who does strength train with us, he would have said that's a ridiculous notion 30 years ago. But now we have good, strong scientific evidence. Federal health agencies are saying we all should be strength training as adults. So who else says that we should strength train? The Department of Health and Human Services, the Centers for Disease Control, the World Health Organization, the American Heart Association. So this is not a fringe idea that we should pay attention to our muscles as we're aging. Now, we all can agree with the concept that it's probably better to move and be active as you age, right? Nobody says that a lot of bed rest is good as I'm getting older. It's good to get out, do things, be active, and just live your life and not be sitting in a chair all day. Pretty much that's intuitively obvious. People know this. And so one of the challenges that we face in America is that it becomes harder and harder and harder to do that because we're experiencing what doctors call sarcopenia, just a medical term for muscle loss as we age. So if you look at someone who's 90, and Al is the exception here, but if you look at someone who's 90 today, compare them to someone who's 50, what's obvious about them immediately is the person who's 90 moves slower, can't do as much. It is 110% due to muscle loss. Now we thought for years this was a normal part of aging. We now know that's 100% wrong. It is completely due to what's called disuse atrophy. It means the less you use your muscles, the more they go away. So being strong gives us the chance to go take a walk. It gives us a chance to travel or do whatever it is we want to do that tends to go away in our culture as we get older because we're just not strong enough. It's that plain and simple. So point number one here is muscle does matter as we age, despite what we've thought for 200 years here in the United States. Now, what is the 1% rule? If we look at the guidelines that currently exist, what is the biggest barrier? People, you might listen to me today and say, oh, that's interesting, sounds good, not a bad idea. You might go home and do absolutely nothing about it. What is the number one barrier for why people are unlikely to adopt any exercise in their life? Any idea what it is? Time. It's time. We're already overbooked, overstressed. We're all trying to capture a little bit of downtime, a little bit of time to live the life that we want to live. So time is a barrier. So we look at the current exercise guidelines for strength training. They tell us 2 or 3 full body strength workouts a week. And what differentiates 2 from 3 is intensity. The harder you work, the less you should do. You should have more rest and recovery. So what we do at Med Fitness is 2 full body workouts a week, 25 minutes a shot. You're in and out, less than 1% of your week to capture the health and vitality that we're all looking for these days. So it's a very small piece of time. And now why wouldn't it make sense to take this more is better approach? We tend to like to think that more is better here in the United States. If something's good for me, then more has to be better for me. Well, we're all getting older, right? We're all aging day by day, year by year. And so with that comes a reduced ability to recover from intense muscular work. What's your name, sir?
Ed.
Ed. So if I take Ed through a challenging workout, how old are you, Ed?
65.
So it's 65. If I work him hard today, we can make him strong and healthy, but we simply have to give him more time to recover at 65 than when he was 45. He should still do it, he just needs a slightly longer rest cycle. So our body's ability to recover does go down some. It doesn't mean we shouldn't still stimulate our muscles to be healthy. And so because we're losing the ability to recover, we just have to have more rest days in between. So we do twice a week. Our average client is actually 66 at Med Fitness, which is very uncommon for the fitness industry. The other thing is that we're all pretty normal people here, right? Well, some of us are normal. So we have what we call average genetics. We are average responders. If we trained everyone in this room diligently with perfect nutrition, perfect recovery, we'd get stronger, we'd get a little bit bigger, we'd gain some muscle tone, but we wouldn't become massive like professional bodybuilders. We do not have the DNA to get that big and muscular. That's a genetic limitation. And so because of that, more isn't better again. If you had that DNA and we could train you all day, every day, and you were taking drugs to enhance that process, then it would make sense to train more frequently, more often. But we're all normal, everyday people. This is about 90% of the population is what scientists call an average responder. So doing more typically doesn't get you more when we think about strength training on a consistent basis. So the point here is that a very small piece of your week is all it takes to really begin to live better, be healthier as we're aging. And by the way, this issue of muscle loss, 1 workout a week. Think about this for a second. 1 workout a week, 25 minutes. What doesn't matter to be with Med Fitness, do it on your own. 1 workout a week can prevent this age-related decline in muscle and bone tissue. That is monumental. 25 minutes once a week needs to be productive, but this can reverse the tide that we're seeing in the United States where people are becoming less and less and less functional. By the way, what is the number 1 reason why people are not number 2 reason why people have to leave their home in the United States? We know Alzheimer's is number 1, right? This is why adults are institutionalized, because they just can't function independently. You know what the number 2 reason is? Muscle weakness. People are just too weak to live independently, safely on their own. This happens all day, every day in America. Sir, we're gonna have to bring you out of the home that you love to live in. We're gonna put you over here. You're not gonna see your friends as often. You're probably not gonna drive much because people are just too weak and dysfunctional. This is 100% preventable and 100% reversible. And that's what we call muscle loss and sarcopenia. Now lastly, why would I suggest that lifting weights is a forever behavior? Again, this is a seismic shift in our culture. You guys grew up, I grew up. Nobody said, hey, you're gonna lift weights when you're 90, 70, 80. Nobody said that. In fact, people would laugh at you if you said that. Why would we say it's a forever behavior? Well, it was Dr. Bill Evans at Tufts University in the early 80s and others since him who have published work showing that muscles never stop responding to a productive stimulus. In other words, if we take Doc over here and we say, Doc, I'm gonna work your biceps, we're gonna do some bicep curls. The biceps today are just as responsive as they were 50 years ago. We have had no idea that was true. And remember the days where the workouts for seniors was let's lift soup cans? Now there's nothing wrong with soup cans. They're just not heavy enough to stimulate a change in the muscle tissue. So for years, medical professionals said, well, doc, it's just too late for you. Go live your life, have a great time. We didn't know that muscles were responsive. So Dr. Evans in the 80s at Tufts, and again, many others since then, have shown that if I work doc a little harder, if I push them a little more, I can stimulate those muscles to adapt the same way they did when he was 25. Again, this was unbelievable in the 80s. This has only been repeated with dozens of studies over the last 30 to 40 years. So muscle responsiveness never goes away. This is a game changer. People, all the time we see people who think, well, I'm too old. You know when you're too old is when you're dead. That's when you're too old. Unless you are dead, your muscles still respond to strength training. Muscle loss also accelerates as we get older. So I'm 55, so if I spent a year not strength training, I'll lose muscle, I'll get weaker. But if you're 65, that rate of muscle breakdown is faster. And if you're 75, it's even faster, and 85, it's even faster. So every decade of life, the rate at which skeletal muscle disassembles accelerates. And so all the more reason to be strength training. If you had to make an argument, older is better when it comes to strength training. You have more to hang on to when you're older than when you're at a younger age. The other thing is that we hear, you guys know this, people say, well, that's great advice, Richard. Sounds good on paper, but I'm a little too old for this. I'm too far along in the life cycle, so I'll see you later. I'm just going to live my life out here and see what happens. The older you are, the more effect your health habits have on health expression. Let's say that again. That is probably the most important thing you'll hear for the next 5 years of your life. The older you are, the greater your health habits have on health expression. What does that mean? It just means that if you take a walk, eat an apple, strength train, whatever it is, the impact today is greater than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So what am I saying here? Genetics play a smaller role the older you get. It's health habits that account for 70 to 80% of health as you age, and people think it's the reverse. They think, well, I'm 60, I'm old. It's all over, there's nothing I can do. No, there is a ton of things you can do. Any one change makes a greater difference today than it did 30 years ago. Now, does anyone know about this field of epigenetics? Have you ever heard of that term, epigenetics? This is a very exciting area of study. We always thought that if you have family history of a disease, let's say it's cancer, you have cancer in your family, our mindset was what? I can't do much about that, right? That's in the DNA. We have the same DNA here, we can't change that. Well, now epigenetics tells us that our health habits, what we choose to do, if we sleep or not, if we're active, if we eat sensibly, and so on, our health habits change how our genes behave. This is unbelievable. It's called up and down regulation. We can switch on good for you genes, we can turn off bad for you genes. This is mind-boggling, to say the least. And so you might have a family history of heart disease or cancer or whatever it is. You doing things, again, sensible eating, good rest, good relationships, physical activity, modifies how those genes behave. We're not changing genetic code. I'm not saying we're going to reassemble the DNA. We're changing how cells read one another and then how they behave, and that's called genetic expression. So this all comes back to the fact that the older you are, the more reasons, not the less reasons, the more reasons you have to say, hey, what's a sensible way to take care of myself as I age? And not because you want big biceps, because you want all of the other things in your life that you like that come from being vital, independent, resilient, energized, and so on. So the take-home message here is that, again, in a tiny amount of time, you have to do it right. You just can't go lift soup cans, but in a tiny amount of time, we can literally stop that aging process of sarcopenia, and we can literally reverse it and go back in time. In 1 month, at Med Fitness, what we tell our clients, in 1 month, we will reverse a year's worth of muscle loss. It's a pretty good return on time. In 1 month, I'll take you back a year to where you were physically. In 2 months, we'll go back 2 years. So it is an age reversal process, something that is super due to our modern world, where what we're familiar with is medicine. Medicine has figured out how to keep people alive for a long time, but it really hasn't mastered how to improve the quality of life as people are aging, and that's what we're talking about here this morning. So on that note, I'm going to direct you to 2 resources here on your handout. The first one is our Learning Center. That's the part of our website where we put all of our resources, our articles that we write every month, the lectures that we give, everything that we have is there. So if you just said, hey, I want to learn a little more about strength training, you can go to the Learning Center and read an article, watch a video, and learn more about strength training and apply that to your lifestyle as well. The other thing is that we do offer a free trial workout. So if you said, hey, this is interesting, let me go in for a test drive and see what this guy's talking about here. You can come in, kick the tires, take a test drive, see if it's for you, see if it's a fit for you. But as I mentioned, it's a simple 25-minute workout twice a week. 10 years ago, we created a service called On-Demand Personal Training, where you don't need an appointment to work with a trainer. You walk in the door, we train you. It's that simple. It costs about 2/3 less than conventional appointment-based training. This is what drives us crazy. We want people to have access to supervised exercise. We want to make it simple. We want to make it doable. So that's what we call on-demand personal training. On that note, I'll say one more thing. This is one of the things that we like to do, is get out in the community and speak to groups. So I'm going to leave you with, we call this the leave behind sheet. This is just a little flyer that mentions that we go out in the community and talk. We're desperate to come out and talk to groups like you, because it's good for our business, but then it's a great way to teach people about how to live well at the same time. So if you have a group, organization, club that's looking for speakers, we're happy to come out and speak to your group and share the information that we are sharing today. So on that note, any questions about what I've said? Over here, sir, yes?
Yeah, how does bone density loss affect? How's that?
Same thing, exact same thing. We get women
Is there a
coming.
relationship?
Absolutely. There was a German physician in the late 1800s. His name's Julius Wolff. He's actually a surgeon, and he discovered that bones respond to the stresses they're imposed to. So strong muscles impose compressive force on bones. So this is why strength training is so good for bones. Yes, the workout stimulates your bones, your osteoblasts, but then having more muscle produces this continual pressure on bones, which is good because it increases the bone building cells. So absolutely, the two are highly connected. Yep, highly connected. It's a good one, yeah.
Where do you concentrate your activity? What are the most important muscles in your body to develop? Upper body, lower body?
Yeah, it's the big muscles. It's a big muscle. So it's your lower extremity. You have to train one part of your body for the rest of your life. Train your legs. When we look at sarcopenia and the dysfunction in the train wreck that produces, it's because people can't stand, they can't walk safely, they can't ambulate. I'm not saying ignore your upper body, but if you had to choose something, train your legs. Train your legs, your hips, your quadriceps, critically vital, because from that you can do other stuff. But we work on the big muscles, chest, shoulders, arms, backs. You don't need to worry about the outside of your forearm and the lower part of your calf. Train the big muscles. So it's 8 exercises that we do. It can be super simple, super simple. Yeah, it does not need to be complicated, which is really the key message, yeah.
What do you do about working around arthritis and things where it's painful to,
Yep, great.
You just talk, how do you approach that?
Yeah, that's a huge issue with our clients, as you can imagine. So we call it working around the issue. So it doesn't mean with arthritis you have more reasons to strength train, not fewer reasons. So what you don't want to do is irritate the joint. So if you can, let's say you can do a bicep curl like this, you've got arthritis in the elbow, and you say, oh, okay, that doesn't hurt me, so we'll do that activity. If it does, we do what's called a maximum contraction. We simply hold the weight. You guys remember this, remember isometrics from years ago? Hold the weight in one position with a heavy enough weight so that you fatigue the biceps for 1 to 2 minutes, and then set the weight down. So there's no joint motion. So we do that with the hip, we do it with the knee, we do it with a lot of joints. But people have significant arthritis. Usually a little arthritis, people can work through some movement, but there may be a few things they can't do. But that's called working around it. You absolutely can strength train if you have arthritis. And the other thing is, that if it's spinal or hip or knee, the more muscles you have, the more we dissipate those ground reaction forces. One of the reasons why people who have arthritis aren't active is because it hurts to be active. So muscles are shock absorbers. If I can beef up the strength of your muscles, they dissipate that ground reaction force. Your back has less pain, your hips have less pain, your knees have less pain. So it's an argument in favor of, again, smart strength training, but we would do a max contraction, hold it still if we need to, or shorten the range. But there's ways to work around it, yes, absolutely. Yep, yeah, that's normal here in the United States, so. Yes, sir.
What should be the relationship between an aerobic workout and a strength workout?
Yeah, right. Do keep them separate. Don't try to make them the same thing. But do your strength workout and then add your aerobic activity to that. A small detail people will ask us, well, if I'm going to strength train and do aerobics on the same day, does it make difference what order I do? Generally, it doesn't. Go do them. We tell people strength train first just because you want to be fresh and focused when you're strength training. It's easy to go take a nice brisk walk, get some aerobic activity in. But you want to do them both. The Department of Health and Human Services says that you want to expend about 20 to 30 minutes of moderate physical activity on most days of the week if you're just doing that, in addition to a couple strength workouts a week. So yeah, definitely be active. Remember, we're strength training so we can be active, so we can go do those things. There's a truckload of benefits to that also, for sure. So you don't want to miss that general activity just because you're lifting weights. So, another question, Sarah?
What about muscle memory? My wife insists that I've been going to the same gym for many years, lifting the same machines, doing the same stuff. She says over time, I've gotten so accustomed to doing that I'm getting less benefit out of lifting the same stuff and exercising the same muscles the same way.
Right, not true.
Would you like a note?
I think I need to leave the country right now. So muscle memory is something completely different. So what she's talking about is the fact that people will sometimes stop doing the same thing because it's just not very exciting to them. And so what is important to some degree, you want a simple workout that's doable, but a little bit of variety to keep it fresh to you, to keep you engaged in that habit, just like having a healthy diet with some recipes that you like. But what matters, what's your name, sir? Bob. What matters, Bob, more than anything, you could do 3 exercises for the rest of your life and get spectacular superhuman benefits. What matters is intensity. You will stop benefiting if you're not working hard enough. So again, if you came to me today, chances are we would probably push you harder than you're currently working on your own. Now again, doesn't mean you can't do it on your own, but this is where people don't know about how hard to go and how hard to push themselves. In fact, Dr. Evans, who now teaches at Duke Medical Center, his recommendation is all adults should train to muscle failure. You know what that is, guys? You go to the point where you can't do another repetition. So we train slow at fitness, so 10 up, 10 down. So if I'm lifting up in 10 seconds, maybe I did my 5th rep, I thought, oh, for heaven's sakes, that's hard, I can't continue. I'll set it down. You should at least try that 6th repetition. If you get stuck and you can't, boom, you've hit failure, relax, you're done. So that's the point of overloading the muscle, Bob. So you want that high stimulus to get the response, but you can do ridiculously simple exercises forever. And if you get all the big muscles, you're always going to benefit if you're working hard enough. So, yeah, so that's good news for all of us. So, on that note, I thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Oh, yes.
I got a question.
Yeah.
The statistics come out occasionally about how young people, grade school kids, middle school,
Yeah.
more and more becoming obese and
Yes.
whatever. Do you ever approach schools or younger segments as well?
We do. We do some presentations and talks with young adults at schools as well. It's a great question because that's the real issue here in essence, isn't it? I mean, we could look around and say, gosh, adults aren't real unhealthy. Kids are actually worse. And here's what happens with kids. Kids learn unhealthy habits as they grow up. They practice them as adults. What was your name, Miss? Kim. If Kim is 40 today and she's been living a certain way her whole life since she was a young kid, it's like pulling teeth to get Kim to adjust her health habits. So the sooner in the life cycle you have some productive movement, it makes sense. I know you guys know that, but yeah, so working with kids is important too. And we do have young kids training at our facility. They should strength train too, they just need to do it safely. Yeah, we need to get kids moving.
How about some of the high school athletes that are really looking to go on? Do you work with people like that?
We do. We just signed up a high school athlete yesterday. He does hockey, he does golf, and he does one other sport. But they need to be strong and healthy too. And with athletics, the key is that you don't, if you're going to get hurt, you don't want to get hurt in the gym doing something that should be safe. You want to get hurt winning the game-winning, catching the game-winning pass for the playoffs and so on. So it should be safe. So we do work with high school athletes as well.
So what would be your general fee structure?
Yeah, great question. So again,
I'm the straight man.
yeah, right. Yeah.
I wondered why you were here.
So we have two options. We have a 1-year commitment on our personal training or just a month-to-month membership. The 1-year commitment is $149 a month. That's about $18 per workout. Compare that to appointment-based training, about $50 a workout. So it makes it much more doable, a lot less, and you show up when you want. I'm not squeezing you into my schedule. The month-to-month is a little higher, so it's $169. But that's about 2/3 less than conventional appointment-based training, so it's radically low when we think about personal training in general. But yeah, good question. Good to know where we're at from a cost standpoint. Yeah. Yes, sir.
When you talk about working to the failure point,
Yeah.
do you recommend doing more reps to that point or just heavier weights?
Well, more important than that is slow movement speed. So the weight will be what it is. Like for instance, on our machines, I'm doing about 120 pounds in the bicep curl. Now that's a machine, that's not a barbell where I'm lifting 120. And so I'm going up and down in 10 seconds up, 10 seconds down. We call it super slow, very safe for the joints, very safe. But by slowing down, what am I doing, guys? If I go slower, what happens? I'm eliminating momentum. It is a lot harder to lift slowly than it is to go fast like this. People do this, don't they? You go to the gym, they're doing this. That's a ton of momentum. It's hard on the joint and it makes it easier on the muscle. So as you slow down, I would say if you're just doing some strength workouts, some strength training on your own, a good general speed is about 5 seconds up, 5 seconds down. Real safe. Work to the point where you have a weight heavy enough that you hit that failure somewhere between 1 to 2 minutes. And so you'll have to kind of play to see what's the right weight. But there's no magic weight. It's about hitting that threshold, slow and controlled, somewhere between 1 to 2 minutes. So that would be for you, well, for 1 to 2 minutes, what is that? That's 60